Welcome to the Cult Classic Horror Show. Every week, you can have the conversations you've always wanted to have about the films you love.
Shut up!
We're gonna get you, not another peep.
Get rid of your distractions and prepare yourself.
Then lock your door. 5, 6, gonna crucifix.
You got a big surprise coming to you. You're not going anywhere.
Welcome, everybody, to the Cult Classic Horror Show. I am Ty Andreaco, not Danny Bonin, not Scotty Bonin, not the Rob, but just a lowly blogger who saw a great movie and wanted to speak to the gentleman responsible for the imagery in that movie. And on the phone today, we have Zane Hershberger, who is the cinematographer for The Barn and also a writer, director, and amongst other things, a big part of a film called 1031, an anthology film. Zane, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me on.
So, we're happy to have you, Zane. So I want to start off with a kind of a generic question here, but are you a passionate horror fan, or did you see horror as a commercial endeavor?
Dude, I eat, sleep, and breathe horror, pretty much. Anyone that knows me is like, someone wants to talk about horror movies, like, go see that guy.
That's great. That's great. So what got you involved in filmmaking?
Actually, when I was young, to tell you the truth, when I was younger, I didn't like horror films a whole lot. Like, they scared me too much. And then I was more into, like, dinosaurs and stuff, which then led me to Godzilla and more into, like, big monster movies. And then from then, at a certain point, it just kind of clicked. And I just, ever since, never looking back, just digesting, like, every kind of form of horror I could find. And I originally started writing my own stories, and after a while I'm like, I like writing, but I started kind of becoming more, enamored with film, because I'm like, it's so cool for these stories, but I really like to see, my stories come alive and, see them portrayed on a different, on celluloid. So I came out here to Pittsburgh. I was actually from out by Harrisburg, and I moved out here to Pittsburgh to the Art Institute of Pittsburgh, and graduated from there, and then just started meeting up with people, and just ever since been messing around, making a couple of movies in the beginning, of course, never went anywhere, just trying to see what worked and what didn't. But then after a while, kind of started getting our legs, and now we're hopefully chugging full speed ahead to move on to some great projects we have in the works coming up.
Well, your previous projects have been excellent. Being in this end of the business, I see a lot of stuff that's lackluster would probably be the best terminology for what I see. And a friend of mine who I'm going to give him a little shout out here, Brad Traeger. He's a Cult Classic Horror member. He's an avid proponent of the Riverside Drive-In, where April Ghouls and a lot of other events happen, including an event you're involved in. He loaned me The Barn, and immediately after seeing it, I had to talk to you. It is. What was that? I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, I'm so glad you enjoyed it, because I said we were, when we're making something like that, you're always afraid that, is this going to come off well, or is it not going to be well received? So you're always kind of like, you know, there have been times when that was an ordeal. It was a 2-year making of that movie. So, you know, as you're going along, there's parts where you're like, is this even worth all this? You know, and so to have people actually, you know, enjoy it and seek us out and say they enjoy it makes us feel good. You know, it makes us want to strive to be better, to even bring more entertaining movies to people who enjoy them.
Yes, well, I guess we should get right into it. Let's not beat around the bush. The barn. How did it start? How did you become involved? And your position there was as cinematographer, correct?
Yes, actually, in the beginning, I was brought on as assistant cameraman, and we did the initial filming of the barn. We were doing, you know, a lot of work. It was the original. I think it was like 24 days or something like that to finish it. And we had a lot of issues. There were some special effect issues. There were some crew issues. There's a lot of issues. And I stood by Justin's his vision, because when I first brought on and told about it, I thought it sounded cool because I'm a huge fan of 80s horror. It's like pretty much my favorite. I grew up watching 80s horror. It's my favorite. And I was like, I like this. And I read through the script, and I looked, and I'm like, I really dig this. I love monster movies too. I'm like, I really like this. And of course I love Halloween. So it had everything I wanted in, and I'm like, I can get behind this. So we started doing it. And once we got to the end, we probably had a really, really rough version of what you see now. So I would keep in touch with Justin. I'd be like, hey man, how's it coming along? And I could just tell he's like, I don't know, man. I'm like, no. He would tell me all the issues and all the problems. And I said, I'll tell you what, man. I was like, let's just go back and overhaul everything. I go, let's just do it. Because originally I got paid to work on what I did. But then I came back, and the lead actor, Mitch Mussolino, and some of the other actors came back for nothing, just because we believed in the movie so much. And then we pretty much overhauled the entire film all over again to make it work. That's like reshooting special effects scenes, reshooting new scenes, and adding scenes, and like cutting out stuff that didn't work and replacing them with other ones. So, and then that's how I became the director of photography for it.
Now, when you speak of Justin, you say that's Justin Seaman, right? The writer, director, editor.
Yes.
And
yes.
Apparently, this came from some sort of childhood story that he had written. Yeah. I mean, I got that from the DVD extras, but you know, it looked like pretty convincing material. So it was something that he had been working on since his youth.
Yeah, when he was a kid, he used to live, I guess he stayed at his grandma's a lot, and she lived on this property. And he said from where he sat, like I think it was like when the trees would all, you know, die and drop their leaves, he said you could see this old barn over the hill. And he was always like, I wonder what is in that barn. And, you know, with a kid's imagination, and he was into horror at the time. He's like, what if there are monsters in there? So he started formulating, and he wrote these little, it was like, 'cause I used to do the same thing. I'd make little comic books and little stories and picture books and stuff. And he did the same thing. He took the story and he drew the creatures, and he, you know, wrote this story about these kids that go there. So then, as he got older and got more into film, he always wanted to do that story. So when he started, I think when he went to college and, you know, started working with film, he's like, I really want to bring the barn out. So he sat down with him and his writing partner Mark, and they took the original story and they turned it into what we see today. And I said, if you get, I think it's the Blu-ray, they actually took in the special features, they actually took screen grabs of the actual books. He still has them. He actually took screen grabs, and you can flip through them on the Blu-ray and look at the actual original books.
That's amazing, because I have very little of, you know, anything from my childhood, really. It's amazing.
I know. They held up surprisingly well. And he even like one side would be the picture and the other side would be like, you know, him writing the story. and he actually translated it on another page. He would translate that, you could figure out what he was writing. He even put the bad grammar in and everything. He just did it verbatim what's on there. So it's pretty funny. It's awesome. It's really cool.
So the barn and I can't say enough good things about this film because just from the DVD case, it leads you to believe there's two little tiny things on there. And I know this is just a marketing thing or whatever, but there are two tiny things on the back of the DVD case that struck me before I even put the movie into the DVD player. Number one was Be Kind, Rewind, which, for millennials, they will never understand. And 50-cent charge if tape is not rewound. So entering this film with that kind of direction that you wanted to, or that you and everybody involved wanted to make a film that was essentially a VHS throwback. How, as a cinematographer, do you tackle something like that? I mean, how do you make it look like it? And it does. And this was just from messages between me and you, but it honestly looks like the VHS that I never found in my local video store.
Well, that's what Justin had wanted to do. He said he literally wanted to make it, but he said, let's pretend. Because every once in a while, you'll see a movie pop up that's kind of obscure, and they'll put it out. And you're like, I never even heard of this movie from the 80s. And there was one called The Basement that came out like a couple of years ago. It was like an anthology movie that came. It was shot on, I think, like 16 or Super 8 or something. Mm-hmm. And they put out like a big big box edition of it and stuff. And Justin was like, I want this movie to be like a lost 80s movie, like something that like it was lost and now it's just found. Like someone had the cans in their basement. They just found it. Mm-hmm. So when we went in, we actually, I watched so many 80s horror movies over and over and over and over again. And then even like me wanting to make those type of films, I study those films as well. So we knew there were certain things in there that we couldn't have, that they didn't really do in some of those like old lower budget horror films. Like we couldn't do these elaborate, like Children of Men tracking shots and stuff through. Because at the time, like only like Stanley Kubrick would do something like that. In the old days, those guys wouldn't really do stuff like that. So that was another thing, is like keep the cinematography kind of like basic. And we had to watch, because sometimes with the camera, you got to watch like some of the cameras now, you get like that Gladiator look, like high-speed shutter look on the digital video. You had to eliminate, because some people, like in their zombie movies now, they move all and there's like that trailing when they're attacking and stuff. Mm-hmm. You had to cut all that out because those movies didn't have that back then. And in fact, there's a scene in the barn we actually had to remove because there was some of that in it. Because we're like, it was like, wow, I said that definitely looks like digital video now. So we had to remove that to make sure everything looked. And then honestly, after that, and I went to Justin, and he was a workhorse, man. He had his idea of how he wanted to look with like the grain and all that, the saturation and all that stuff, just to make it look like. And I remember he took me to he had a viewing room, and we went and we watched it. The first time he showed me the final cut. And when I went and sat down, I watched it with my daughter, and we sat there, and I was amazed when I watched it, how it looked. I was like, wow. I was like, this really looked like an old movie. I was impressed myself, like, because I'd only seen the dailies look like what we shot clean. But after he started putting all the filters and things on it, like it blew me away. When I just sat down, I was like, man, he really, really nailed this.
You said you watched it with your daughter. How old's your daughter?
Well, my youngest is 18 now, so she was probably like 16 or 17 when we watched it.
Now, was she familiar with like the VHS fare? I mean, had she seen films like that? Had you exposed her to?
Yes, both my daughters. More my oldest one has been more into my youngest. she's very particular. She's kind of like, that looks cheesy, and I'm like, shut up. So she's not too into the old movies. She likes new horror films. But my oldest daughter, she's 21 now. She really likes, when she was like a young kid, I didn't give her show her crazy stuff. I couldn't show her Cannibal Holocaust and stuff like that, but I would show her more kid Silver Bullet. She loved Silver Bullet. And I would show her some really cool ones that when I was a kid growing up, I was like, this is a really cool movie.
Well, who doesn't like a film? Who doesn't like a film with Gary Busey? I mean, you can't go wrong.
Exactly. And I couldn't show her Reanimator until she was older because of the head scene. I'm like, yeah, I can't really show her that because her mom would skin me alive. So, but I tried to show her. Although what's funny is my youngest is now totally enthralled. Even the old one, she's totally enthralled with Texas Chainsaw Massacre. We watch pretty much all of them. I started her out on the newer one. Yeah, the newer ones. Mm-hmm. But she likes the Leatherface movie. She thinks they're awesome. So she just bought me the new Leatherface for my birthday, and she's gonna watch this day. I'm like, all right, we'll watch it.
That's right. You just celebrated her birthday. Happy birthday. What was your birthday? What date?
I thank you. It was actually yesterday.
It was yesterday. All right. So that would be February. You're not a leap year baby, are you?
I'm not. No, I was right. There wasn't a leap year that year, but it's the last day of February. Yeah, so it's pretty easy to remember. Last day of the shortest month, so it's pretty easy to remember.
Yeah. I'm impressed that your kids are so receptive of the Texas Chainsaw franchise, because as somebody that kind of discovered it later in life, I think I was 16 years old, and at that point, I mean, I was born in '87, so I grew up pulling the '80s films out of the rental outlets. Texas Chainsaw was something that I discovered a little bit later in life, and it was a little hardcore for me. I mean, particularly the original. It was yeah. It was not something that I would say was over the top or but I wouldn't expect children of a younger generation to appreciate it. So apparently you raised them right.
Yeah, she I should surprise. I mean, she really gravitated to him for some reason. I don't know if it's because Freddy's kind of hokey, with his one-liners and stuff, and but they're fun. They're fun, but I think Leatherface, no matter what, it's kind of scary, because that's something that that dude could actually exist somewhere, doing some crazy, and or even you said, even if we're pretending, okay, this happened in the 70s or whatever, he probably would have been getting away with it, even more. And I think that's kind of just he's scary. Even some people bash the Jessica Biel one and the one.
I do not bash the Jessica Biel one at all because of
I
her in the wet
fantastic.
T-shirt.
I was like that's true. Yeah, but they made him he wasn't a goofball. He wasn't he was brutal, and I'm like, this is how Leatherface should be. And I said, and whether people, I don't know why they didn't really like it, but I thought it was gritty and it was grim, and I'm like, this is really how this guy should be. And it's I enjoyed those movies both for the brutality and just he wasn't a clown. He wasn't clown shoes. He was going out doing what he does. He's a big hulking maniac that'll rip you apart. So I love those movies. I think they're great.
Well, you're raising them right. That's for sure. So let me take a look here at my notes and just redirect us back towards the barn here. So let's see. Well, obviously, Linnea Quigley is in this movie. And I'm going to mention her before R.E. Lemon just for one reason, and that is Return of the Living Dead.
Oh yeah.
I think that's where most mainstream horror fans know her from. People that consider themselves aficionados would probably pick a whole plethora of other titles. But what was it like to work with her, and were you on the set with her?
Yes. Yeah. So what had happened was Justin had originally wanted Linnea to play that part of Mrs. Barnhart. And because he thought it was cool to put her in a part where, we've always known her as the sex pot, she's always a sexy girl and stuff. So he's like, wouldn't it be funny if she's like the uptight, like school marm, just like complete opposite, wouldn't even show, how dare you talk about boobs, So he originally wanted to get her, and we tried to get a hold of her, couldn't get a hold of her, to figure out how to even talk to getting her involved. So he went with, at the time, another actress, and she was fine. She did good, but she worked okay, but Justin had always wanted Linnea. So I actually went to a convention, I think it was Horror Realm, and Linnea was there. And I was going, and Justin wasn't, and I saw she was there. I said, do you want me, now that we're doing reshoots and everything, I said, do you want me to go see if she'll be in it? He's like, yeah, please. So I went, and I talked to her, and I gave her our information, showed her the original trailer we cut together, and she seemed interested, but we never heard back from her again. So we're like, well, I guess she must not have been interested. But then it showed, we were invited to go to, and it's funny because the movie actually showed a couple times with the original actress. When we originally did the premiere, the first two premieres, one in Pittsburgh, and I think it premiered up in Canada. Mm-hmm. I was with the original actress. And then it started getting a little bit of steam, and then we were supposed to go down this popcorn Fright Fest, which is in Florida, where she lives. She must have saw it there, and then she said, I'll tell you, and then she contacted Justin and said, hey, I would love to be in this movie, and if we can get it done before it plays at Popcorn Fright Fest, I'll go and I'll promote it. And we're like, well, how can we say no to that? She's going to literally go there, and people want to see her and promote the movie. So flew her in, shot the scenes we needed, and that's how it went. And she was wonderful to work with. She is such a sweetheart. You think sometimes some of these people might be, I was in this, give me money and stuff. Don't talk to me unless you got $20. You know the conventions, So, but she was so great, so awesome, so friendly, very talkative, always, she still talks to Justin about their baby, they just had a baby, and she's like, oh, how's the baby? It's funny. It's awesome. She's a very nice lady, wonderful to work with.
Yeah. It just a personal thing here. I noticed her in the movie almost immediately. I recognized her in that scene, and I was watching the film with the barn with my girlfriend. And I said, oh, my God, I can't believe that's Linnea Quigley. I said, the last time I saw her, I was rewatching a Joe Bob Briggs. You are familiar with Joe Bob Briggs.
Oh, Monster Vision.
Yeah. I was rewatching.
with Joe Bob Briggs on it.
Yeah. I was rewatching, his episode of Return of the Living Dead with her. And I was like, I can't believe that's her. There she is, I said, boy, I understand that I recognize her. I get it. I know who she is, but I was like, she just doesn't look the same. And then that was when my girlfriend pointed out that it was 20 years ago that interview took place. And I was like, man, I feel old.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So I've been noticing that a lot. I'll just they'll put stuff up on Facebook now, hey, such and such came out 30 years ago. I'm like, oh my God, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. But it was I don't know, it gave the film it gave the film credibility. It really did.
That's exactly what he was kind of hoping, that, if we had a couple, and people do this, they do, we've known, you've seen indie films, they put, they'll get a horror star in it. They won't be able to have them for a long time, but they'll put them in there, and for some for some street cred. That's pretty much what he wanted. And he always wanted Linnea because basically The Barn is sort of a love letter to a couple of the films that he loved, which is Monster Squad and the one that he like The Demons. And he said, Halloween movie, Linnea Quigley, that, it's got to be because she was the Night of the Demons and Night of the Demons rules. So we wanted her in The Barn.
Yeah. Well done, because it was honestly that moment when I was watching it and I was honestly thinking, Christ, how did they get her?
Persistence, man. Just persistence.
Yeah. It was better than what's her name, Buckley in Split. Have you seen the M. Night Shyamalan film Split?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think it's Beth Buckley or Betty Buckley. I don't know. She was from Carrie, but
she was the psychiatrist, wasn't she?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that was like a mainstream guy trying to do what indie guys have been doing for forever now, and it didn't have the same impact. In fact, to be perfectly honest, I didn't even recognize her, but I did recognize Linnea.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the generation I was, born into. And, that's just the way it is. All right, so a few more things. I mean, we might as well get into the other celebrity involved in the film, the other horror celebrity involved in the film, as long as we're talking about it, and that is R.H. Lemon, and he was the original Jason Voorhees. He is the one that pops out of the water in Friday the 13th, 1980, and he's quite the metal motherfucker, isn't he?
Yeah. First Jason, the band.
Yeah. I've spoke with him a few times about doing an interview, and it never did quite come to fruition. Probably mostly my fault because he is absolutely approachable. So, could you speak a little bit about working with Ari?
Sure. So, originally, Justin had wanted Tom Savini as Dr. Rock.
Yeah.
And he asked him, and he was way out of price range, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
So then I think it was might have been the Pittsburgh Comic-Con that we went to. We saw a couple horror stars were going to be there, and one of them was Doug Bradley, played Pinhead, and he was like, I want to get Doug Bradley, and I'm like, well, we can try, because I think he lives around Pittsburgh now.
Yeah, I think he is dating a woman locally or married to a woman locally. Yeah. Yes.
So, and I never knew that until after he did a movie called Scream Park. I'd never known that. And so we went there with the intention to, secure him. But when we went and saw him, it's just like he's a good actor. I think he's a really good actor. Just he didn't really look the part. I'm like, he doesn't really scream like crazy rock DJ guy. Like he seems kind of more, I don't know, you just
spotted T English gentleman, yeah.
Exactly. Like he see him as a priest or like a doctor or a psychiatrist or something like that. Just like wacky Howard Hessman from WKRP or something just isn't ringing with this guy. So I saw that Ari was there, and I actually knew someone that had worked with him on another film. I was like, hey, why don't we try Ari Lehman? I said, he's got that look, man. I said, he has that look. And so we went over, and we started talking to him. I said, hey, man, we got this movie we're working on, and we have this character. We thought you might be good because we know that you worked with these people and stuff. And I said, go to the trailer, and he was seeing it, and we said, his guy's name is Dr. Rock. And he runs a show and blah, blah, blah. And it's not a very big part, but, and he instantly, he looked and he goes, I'm him. I'm Dr. Rock. And he just started going off like, I'm Dr. Rock. And we're like, yeah, you're Dr. Rock. So so Justin started talking with him. We got his information, so started talking with him. And he was going to come in and do first Jason was touring around, and I forget where they were at, but they weren't too far away. But he goes, "I'll tell you what, we're doing this show here, but after this, the next day we could come in, and you have us for the whole day." So we did like this, he's got his show, and when you watch the movie, there's like an opening. We had to make it look like his show was legit, so we had to show like different scenes where it's like the opening of his show is like a montage of different episodes from his show. Mm-hmm. So we had to basically build, and this was in an old annex building to an old insane asylum down here called Dixmont. And they had some annex buildings that are still over there that people rent out and use. So we were able to get in there and the day before, and we built like stations. Like, this is Dr. Rock's desk. This is where he does his, because we also pretend in the movie that he does a late night horror movie show too. Mm-hmm. So we basically went in and projected like a screen on this wall in a different room, and we set up we gave him like these 3D glasses and stuff and popcorn. Then we just started doing these different. We shot a fake rock video with him playing the guitar. We shot like all this stuff for him. So when he showed up, we just kept running him to the different stations. We're like, here, where we had the lighting set up. So it was like, you're in this station, you're in this station, you're in this station. And he said he was actually pretty impressed with how well we got in and got him out with and we even shot him. We even added, we had him do for our Indiegogo fundraiser. We actually made the Indiegogo fundraiser looks like an episode of his show.
Yes, I did. I watched that on. Yeah, I watched that on the special features, and it was quite impressive. Now, that was I'm not familiar with what Indiegogo is, but that was some sort of pitch to.
Yes, Indiegogo is basically a crowd. Mainly people use Kickstarter, but Indiegogo is the one we like using, and basically it's a crowd. It's sort of like GoFundMe and things like that. You basically make a pitch video, and you say, hey, we're making a movie. This is what it looks like. If you like this and you think that you'd be interested in helping us make the movie, we accept donations to help us, get either better equipment or secure certain actors and stuff. I mean, you can do whatever you want with it. And then maybe even finishing costs, like, hey, we need like $1,000 for post to do this. And then you basically raise the money in a campaign, and then what people do now is they give you perks like, hey, if you give us $20 or $25, whatever, you'll get, as soon as the Blu-ray is done, you'll get it in the mail. So, and that's usually how that works. You just, or here's a prop from the movie we'll send you. Like, this is the accident that killed this guy, or, here's, whatever. You just give them something that was in the movie. Like, here's a skull that was hanging on the wall, and it works out pretty well.
I have to throw a shout out here because one of our listeners to the podcast, Freddie Torres, after I posted about watching The Barn, he almost immediately posted a picture of an autographed copy of, I believe, the DVD or the Blu-ray. So that was pretty cool. That was pretty cool. It was, and he's not at all local. And I should point that out. We are, Pittsburghers, and we are from the zombie capital of the world. But I really like to think we're from the horror capital of the world. I mean, there's so many horror films. That,
what's funny? Rocky Gray, who scored the movie, he told me he's impressed with the movie he did 1031. A lot of his orders were coming from out here. He's like, man, I'll tell you, there seems like there's a huge horror, like just a network of like love for horror films out on the East Coast. He said in or PA, New Jersey, and New York. He's like, there's a huge love for it there.
Yeah. Well, rightfully so. I mean, I'm only speaking to Pittsburgh specifically. I mean, we obviously have the Romero films. So we have Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead. But we also have like The Silence of the Lambs, Mothman Prophecies, My Bloody Valentine. I mean,
My Bloody Valentine, Sorority Row. It was like,
yeah. That was Sorority Row was like Pitt Greensburg, wasn't it? Or
that was actually, it was filmed in Crafton.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, Crafton down there. In fact, I used to work in the building where they filmed. It used to be WRS Film Labs, and it used to be Armor Meatpacking, and they secured that building and I think filmed the majority of that movie in there.
Interesting. So, All right, let's talk. Let me just look at my notes here, make sure I don't have anything more on the barn, because I can't speak enough about that film. I mean, actually, you know what? There are a couple things that I would like to point out. Number one, first and foremost, there is a scene where the three main characters are walking across a moonlight background. Now, was that a nod to Season of the Witch?
Yeah, it was. Yes.
Yeah. I thought it was. I didn't want to, infer or imply, but yes. Beautiful shot, and obviously a nod to fans of the genre in general. Excellent.
Yeah, it's funny because if you watch the trailer, they're in it's sunset, but in the movie it's actually moonlit. So, which is a shame because the sunset shot looks awesome, but it just doesn't work time-wise in the movie. There's no way it would work.
No, it wouldn't be. It wouldn't have continuity at all.
No.
Let me look through my notes here. Excuse me, I'm not professional at all. I have to look through my notes.
That's fine.
Before we talk about 1031, I'm going to do a little crossover here. There is a skate rink scene in both films. Now, do you know who, between The Barn and 1031, there's a skate rink aspect to it. Now, whose influence was that?
You mean which one came first, or which?
No, just having a skate rink in general. Was that?
I think Justin just wanted to do. For him, I think he just wanted something that came from the 80s, like roller skating, which people still do now, but I think it was more probably relevant back then than it is now. And he had a location was like not too far from his house. Like it's literally, he lives in Claysville, and Washington's like 15, 20 minutes away. So he would, we went to that roller skating rink. I think it was called Pancake. It's went through like 3 owners now. I don't even know if it's even open now, but he always wanted to do that. And I told him that was one of the things that kind of drew, really wanted me to be a part of the barn was when I was reading the script. I'm like, dude, I was like, you have every location I've ever wanted to film in a movie in your script. Like you got drive-in movie theater, you have roller skating rink, you have schoolhouse. I'm like, pretty much every place, Old Creepy Barn. Mm-hmm. I'm like, every place I've ever wanted to film a horror movie, you have in your one story. And I'm like, this is awesome. This to me is like the ultimate horror film for me. Right?
I honestly think a lot of that is what drew me to the barn. Like I've mentioned prior, I grew up I was a young horror fan in the early 90s. And so these films were films, these franchise, films and amongst other things were things that I would just pick up. I'd say, okay, I want to watch this. My mom would be grocery shopping. The video store was attached to the supermarket. So I would just, this is what I want to watch. And I'd go home and watch it. And, I see a lot of that in the barn and even in 1031, and I'm trying to segue here, but, that is the appeal, the style, the imagery, everything is reminiscent between the two films of that era. And, I don't think a lot of filmmakers have tackled that subject matter or looking at it from that point of view. And this is not a question. This is just me giving you guys kudos. I mean, you really did. And I mentioned it earlier in the episode, but you really did make a film with the barn that it felt like I just missed it somehow. And it had always been there. And, kudos to you guys. That's all I can really say about that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
There's another movie that came out a couple of years before The Barn. Where I think the guy did a fantastic job at getting that look the same way as this one called The Sleeper.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about like a bunch of college girls at a they're in their house, and some psycho guy starts calling them on the phone, and he just comes in and starts murdering them all with like hammers and axes and stuff. And I really enjoyed that. I feel bad 'cause I can't remember the director's name, but if anyone wants to find it, just look up The Sleeper. And that one has the same. If you like those type of movies, like the 80s, like The Dorm, The Drip Blood, or like any of those 80s, college girls being terrorized by a killer, The Sleeper is one you should check out.
All right, The Sleeper. I'll look it up as soon as we get off the phone here. Now, let's bridge the gap here into 1031 by saying there are quite a few films that use the rural imagery. Ones that come to mind are the opening scenes of Halloween Part 4, which is like a lot of farm equipment and nothing specific.
One of my favorites, man. I love that opening. Like, yeah. I've always loved the opening of that film.
Yeah, there's something disturbing about that, isn't there? And one that does not get enough appreciation but should is also Friday the 13th Part 5, where obviously Jason wasn't the killer, and we can all get upset about that. But the film has a raw, rural, like in the farm country feel, and
it does.
From your segment of 1031, I got the same exact feeling that disconnection, like there's nothing urban about your segment. And what was it called? The Trespassers?
Oh, Trespassers.
Or Trespassers, yep. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your segment.
Okay, so Trespassers, go ahead. What would you like to know about it?
Well, for the fans, give us a brief synopsis, and then I would like you to tell me about how you chose your approach to the look of it.
Sure. So Trespassers is about a guy and a girl, actors Chad Bruns and Sable Gradell. They are on a first date on Halloween night, and they go see basically whatever new movie we would go see now that we don't like, like some probably Blumhouse movie or something. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So, something that we definitely were like, oh man, that wasn't very good. But they go in and they leave and they're disappointed, which is actually funny because it came from an actual story. When I was younger, I went on a double date with a couple with my girlfriend, and we went and saw Children of the Corn 2. And I remember I was so excited to see it. I'm like, oh, you guys are good. Children of the Corn is so awesome. Children of the Corn 2 is going to be great. And it was not great. No. And I remember just walking out going, guys, I'm really sorry I picked that movie. I'm really sorry. So I kind of wanted to get that kind of funny, like, because I always try and impart some things from my life or something that happened to be into the movies. So at least the ones I write. So what I did was I took that whole thing and just walking out of the movie going, man, that was terrible. Like, I did not get my money's worth out of that film. So the girl in the movie, I tried to play with the conventions a little bit and make it where it's always the guy that wants to go do something scary, and the girl's like, I don't want to, I'm scared, or, those old movies, it's always like, come on, baby, let's go this, and, I kind of want to flip that around a little bit and have the girl be the one that's like, let's go do this, and the guy's like, I don't think that's a good idea, because I thought it would be kind of a fun convention to play with. So she feels cheated, like, she feels like she didn't get her scare for Halloween. So she's like, what are we going to do? He's trying to think of it. And she remembers this old legend about this property where there was a massacre. The father went crazy and murdered the whole family. And the catalyst to it was this scarecrow. So she drives him out there and says, because I used to do this whenever I was a kid with my friends. We would drive out to creepy properties in real life and try and find out what's going on. Like, hey, why is this place so spooky? Like, why do people say this place is haunted or whatever? So basically, she does the same thing. She drives them out there. She goes, "Let's go out here and see what's up with this place." So they go out there, and from that point on, they start realizing there's something more to the legend than just being a legend. Like, there's something real there. And, there's a couple of little twists and turns towards the end. And when I wrote it, I was trying to figure out, because originally when I came up with this, I just said, we got to do a scarecrow, because we're trying to think of movies, stories. We're like, let's go with Halloween. And I was like, there isn't a lot of scarecrow movies. Like, let's do a scarecrow one. I was talking to Rocky, and Rocky's like, yeah, it sounds cool. So we're sitting there kicking around ideas, and I started sitting down and thinking of ideas. And I don't want to say anything because I don't want to spoil it, but there was something with the scarecrow that I thought would be cool. And as soon as I told it to Rocky, he was like, yes. So I wrote the script, sent it to him. He loved it, and he greenlit it. So that was how the origin of that story came to be. And then the look, I'm a huge fan of those 80s films, and I wanted the house, and that was a friend of mine. My friend has this huge property, and his house is old. And I always tell him, I was like, I don't want to be rude, but I was like, your house is scary as shit looking. It looks old. It looks like something, it's creepy. He has a farmhouse. He has an old cottage there. I didn't even show that part. There's a cottage there that's run down. It looks like the Evil Dead cabin practically. Like there's some kind of evil demon or something would be living in it. And then there's he has an old, where he has the barn. You see the barn a little bit. And he just has like these like little things scattered around the property, and the house is right there. And believe it or not, that road is pretty decently traveled. And we tried to eliminate that as much as we could. Like it was a hell on a couple nights with the sound. Because I did want that isolation. I wanted them to go. And we actually, when the movie started, another thing, I always wanted to film in a movie theater. And the Hollywood Theater, which unfortunately now has, I think you're familiar with that, right? What happened with the Hollywood?
Yeah, that's where for a long time, that's where I went to my Rocky Horror.
So we premiered the barn and that there, and they've always been very receptive to us. So I said, I've always wanted to film in a movie theater. It's one of the other places I've always wanted to film. And I said, when they said, can I film here? And they said, yes. And I'm like, awesome. So I said, that's a great place to start. So we start in a theater, but once they leave the theater, I wanted that feeling of isolation. So once they're in the car, they're going out in the middle of nowhere. They go to this property, because ideally the property is supposed to sit on the edge of town. Like a lot of people don't go out there.
Mm-hmm.
And then at that point, I just wanted to showcase a lot of the things when they get out of the car. I really wanted to showcase that house. So when you watch the movie, I try and do a lot of stuff with the houses, especially behind Chad. In fact, if you kind of look at it, I always thought it was like the house is always behind Chad. It's always behind his shoulder. So it always looks like, because he thinks he sees something in the house, like when he first gets out. Mm. So it's always like the house is kind of in the back of his mind. It's kind of like, it's always, there's the house behind him. It's always at the back of his mind, kind of sitting there. So I always wanted the house back there that we could see it. I kind of like the trees. So when we would light, because there's one thing I'm not a big fan of in movies, is I don't like floating heads in the dark. Mm-hmm. Like I just don't like, just on my face, and because there's some old 80s movies I think have some serious lighting problems. Like Humongous would be one of them, where you could barely see what was going on. But I kind of like seeing things in the background, because it gives the characters, it makes them pop, especially if you use depth of field correctly, it makes them pop out. They almost look like they're right there, and then you just makes them stand out. But the background looks nice, always something interesting in the background, but not too interesting that it takes away from them. And I wanted that look. I just kind of wanted that and that nice little bluish sort of light, for the moonlight. We always held up branches, or we shot through trees to kind of give them, because I'm a big fan of the shadows of trees on people, like leaves and stuff. I always loved that look. So those are some of the things that were going through my mind when I was trying to set up the lighting and the background of the film.
Well, it was impactful. I mean, everything you did in your particular segment was amazing. And it's funny that you brought up Children of the Corn too, because I want to go back to that rural thing, that's just the best explanation I can give to it. Maybe being isolated, like you said, was a goal for your segment and everything. There's an image in the original Children of the Corn where they go back to their vehicle and the hood's open over the engine, and there's just corn stalks sitting out of it, sitting. Mm-hmm. And that always, I mean, it seems like such like a little thing that doesn't matter. but it really does. Like, it's really what gives you that feeling, and that feeling of isolation, that feeling of, there's no urban sanctuary to run to. And that's kind of the feeling that I got from your segment. Now, you shot some or most of the wraparound story, correct?
I shot everything in the wraparound except for Malvolia stuff. Jen Nagel, she shot her own stuff because we don't even live close to her. She shot her own stuff and sent it to Rocky because she has a show where she is Malvolia. She has her own YouTube show where she does Malvolia.
Yeah, I discovered that after seeing the film, which, well, good for her.
So he contacted her. She shot it, or she was happy to do it. So she shot her stuff, sent it. I did everything with the little girls, and then I shot Justin.
Oh, I'm sorry, but very unsettling, by the way, with the little girls, particularly at the end. I don't want to give anything away, but particularly at the end, that's one of those, I guess you would call them tropes, but that's one of those things I love where it's not resolved at the end,
Right. To tell you the truth, after I was done filming that, it kind of was like, if there's ever 1031, a second one, I think I'd like to explore that as my story. What was going on in the wraparound.
Yeah, what those two little girls were doing.
Yes. Yeah, I like to take my story and follow them. Like they would be themselves a story in 1031 if there was a second one. I think that's where I was kind of leaning towards because I had fun filming that little segment.
Oh, it was not to use the term not to overuse the term, but it was impactful. It was absolutely impressive.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It definitely left me a little unsettled, and that's what I like from horror. Now, you just to get a little bit of background on 1031, there are the segments came from all different areas of the United States, correct? Now I know you sent
Rockies.
Yeah, I know you sent this to me, but can we go over each segment and where it came from?
Okay, so first off, the wraparound was shot in Crafton, which is from here.
That would be Crafton. That would be Crafton, Pennsylvania. Yeah.
And then my segment Trespassers was filmed in Cranberry, Pennsylvania, which is literally like 20 minutes from my house. And then Justin's segment, which is the Old Hag, was filmed in his area, pretty much where we filmed the bar in Claysville. In fact, if you go down the main street in Claysville, there's this big bed and breakfast, and we always drove by, and I'm like, dude, they light it really nice outside. It looks creepy at night. Like I don't want to say don't go there. Feel like the place is creepy, but it looks nice. It's visually aesthetic when you drive by. The way they have it lit, it looks like it's basically self-lights itself for horror. You're just like, oh my god, this looks so cool because they have these spotlights kind of outside to shoot it low, and it looks just looms there. And at night, it's beautiful because they light it at night all the time.
Yeah, let me interject for just a moment. For those of us who haven't seen the film, the Old Hag the Old Hag segment of 1031 is inside of a bed and breakfast type mansion or house, but it's referred to as the gingerbread, or she calls it the gingerbread house. It is very ornate architecture. Okay, I'm sorry, go on.
That place was amazing. Like, it was so fun to light everything in that house, and just it was great. It was so fun. But his segment, Dustin's, was filmed in Claysville, which is, like I said, not too far from Washington, PA. And then Killing the Dance, which was directed by Johnny Holt, was filmed in Kentucky.
That was the connect, by the way, there that I was talking about with the skate rink.
Oh yeah, because theirs is completely takes place in, like, and they have an '80s vibe to theirs. They did like the like the roller skating rink, and everyone's in a Halloween costume. I think they even have a couple characters, and I think a couple of guys are dressed up like from the dudes from Karate Kid, like they're in the skeleton suits, and the one kid's in the shower, in the shower curtain, so yeah, they're them skating around the background if you watch. So yeah, if John listens to this, I think it was filmed in Paducah, but I could be wrong. So if I'm not correct, I'm sorry, Johnny. But I'm fairly certain it was filmed in Kentucky. Rocky's is filmed he's in Arkansas, so they filmed his in Arkansas. And Brett DeJager, he did the movie Bone Jangles originally. His was the Blizzard of '91. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking he lives in Minnesota. I could be wrong on that too. But
Missouri, Minnesota, somewhere cold and starts with an M.
Yeah, I think it's Minnesota, but I could be wrong. It might be Missouri. I think it's Minnesota.
Okay.
I'm fairly certain it's Minnesota, but I said if I'm wrong, I'm really sorry. And so that was so those were all the stories. I said pretty much across the United States. We grabbed some. I said from touring the barn around, we've met several independent filmmakers that we liked working with them, meeting them, or like their projects. So Rocky, got in touch with them and said, would you guys want to do some stories? Because originally he was going to write the whole thing himself, but he even mentioned he was not a writer, and he goes, and he started liking some of these other projects, and he said, would you guys like to come in? And we're like, oh yeah, absolutely, sounds awesome. So we all came in and started, helping out on it.
Yeah. And I love anthology, and for some reason anthology films lend themselves to horror. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's because us as fans have such a short attention span. Us of the horror genre, fans. Right.
The only one I can think of that isn't one is that movie. Isn't there a movie called like Valentine, or it's like it's a fairly bigger budget Hollywood movie, but isn't that kind of like a bunch of different stories? I think it takes place on Valentine's Day or something.
Yeah, it sounds vaguely familiar, but yeah, anthology has no place anywhere else but horror. I guess that would be it's
kind of like you think about it, like it's like telling a joke. Like most short films and horror films, the ones that work are the ones that have like some kind of a punch at the end or a stab, and it's like really, I mean, I guess comedy could always have a punchline, but horror is like a scary version of comedy where it's like there's a punchline or there's something at the end that you're like, oh, a good one to me. A horror would have like a cool twist or something shocking at the end. You're like, oh wow, just like a joke. A great joke makes you laugh, laugh yourself silly. So it's like, yeah, like those two things would kind of work in a short film sense.
Yeah,
I don't think two people lining up for an anthology of drama films. It's just like, we're just going to sit around and watch people cry and talk.
Yeah, it wouldn't work. There's too much character development going on there that doesn't run.
Stabbing. I'm not happy about stabbing.
What was that? I'm sorry.
There's no stabbing. There's not enough stabbing.
Yeah, exactly. So let's see. To wrap this up, and you said you are a horror fan. You are a horror person. You didn't just get into filmmaking and pick horror because it was the most commercial endeavor. So I guess what I would like speaking to 1031, I would like to ask you, what is your favorite horror anthology that isn't yours, other than 1031, because it's excellent? And what's your favorite horror film? And why, if you have the time?
Sure. Okay, so anthology film, it's really tough, man, because I've been seeing a lot of good ones. But if someone would, pin me down and say pick one, I'd probably have to go with Creepshow, just because Creepshow scared the crap out of me when I was a kid, and I love the looks, man. It's such a visually nice thing to look at. I mean, some people may say the lighting's gaudy or some of those backgrounds are cheesy, but I'm like, that's brilliant, and they capture those looks of those comic panels.
Oh yes, they definitely did, and People can cut it down all they want, but there are those moments. Sorry for interrupting, but there are those moments where it looks like a living comic book.
Yes, and there's great. See, it's just good all over. Like, if I were gonna have like a second thing, I would go with Trick or Treat, because that's a great looking film. It looks good, and the time and kind of tying them all together, they intersect at points is cool. But it looks great. It has, and people have said this before, and of course, like it feels like Halloween. Like the guy really did a good job at making that feel like Halloween. Like you just feel like Halloween when you watch that.
That was
Creepshow.
That was Doherty, and Creepshow was obviously Romero's. But yeah, and Creepshow just like it just when I was a kid, it's so memorable. Like the thing in the crate, the something that tied you over, and it's so funny because after a couple of years, I always changed like which ones I like the best. Mm-hmm.
Like I used to like the Grave one, like a Father's Day.
Mm-hmm.
I used to love that, but then now I kind of started leaning towards the crate, and that, or like later I started doing the crate. Now I think it might be something that tied you over, because just that concept with them being buried is pretty gruesome.
Yeah,
it's not gory. It's not gory or anything. It's just a gruesome concept.
No, it is. It's absolutely disturbing. My actual involvement with cult classic horror began with Dawn of the Dead because I made a meme for our competition, which is called the horror halftime, and you make a meme or whatever. And I made one based on Dawn of the Dead. However, the next episode they were covering Romero films, and it happened to be Creepshow. So when I got recognized, they were talking about Something That Tied You Over, and that's Ted Danson and Leslie Nielsen, right?
It's Leslie Nielsen, Ted Danson, and Galen Ross from Dawn of the Dead.
Oh yeah.
It's his wife. That's who his wife is. Yeah, that's. I mean, you don't see her too well because she's kind of like all.
You just see her like on closed circuit television, right? Like he.
Yeah, like she's kind of drowned like a rat, looking like she's all. It's her, but yeah, it's kind of hard to tell it's her. Yeah, you can tell by her voice a little bit. Yeah,
Yeah, but absolutely, you're right. It is something you appreciate more with age. That particular segment, that's more of the. I wouldn't call it so much psychological thriller, because it's not. It's just the thing that sticks with you. It's that. I think we've all been to the beach and been buried up, not necessarily to our neck, but we've been buried, and once the tide rolls in,
right.
it is difficult to pull your limbs out of that out of the sand.
The thing I also like in this, when they're the waterlogged zombie, like, are they ghosts or are they zombies? Because they obviously teleport. Like there's no, which you're kind of like, all right, you're like, look guys, they're either ghosts or they're not. They either can teleport or they can't. But you know what? It works, because those are some of the big scares to me of that movie, is with them. Like, it's great. You're just like, oh God, there they are. It's like so awesome. Like you look past some of the little things, like, well, if they're ghosts or whatever. But no, it's great. So I said I love that one so much.
So
I love the music in that one. So good.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
So my favorite, if you could say my favorite movie of all time, like horror film of all time,
yeah, that
Evil
was
Dead.
Oh,
absolutely, the original Evil Dead.
Good choice.
Because I whittle it down to me, that is the ultimate horror scenario where you're stuck out somewhere, like you said, you're isolated. Your friends, who are supposed to be the people, your friends, your family, like, they're trying to kill you, and they're not even like human anymore. Like, and then those things don't even, like, the Deadites don't just try and kill you. They torment you, like, just torment you, like laughing and just thinking, just having a good time at your expense of the misery you're in. I think it's great. It's one of my favorites. I think it's a scary, scary ass movie. Some people may cut on it today, say, oh, it's kind of cheap and that, but. And some people even argue and say that they think Evil Dead 2 may be the superior film, which I guess from a technical standpoint it is, but just that raw power of the original holds for me.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I mean, not to say I'm not a fan of Evil Dead 2 or Army of Darkness, but yeah, it definitely, I guess Sam Raimi knew, I guess he had his finger on the pulse of the horror fan.
Yeah.
And the horror fan of generations later, because he certainly, pulled the, he pulled what we are appreciative of all into one film. And I mean, that image of her popping up from the basement and you can see her eyes and it's just,
it's great image. Like, it's just nightmare. Like you said, just basic. It's basically a basic thing, like the thing in the basement. It's such a basic fear, like, a dark basement, something's in the basement. Yeah, there is something in the basement. And it's like, it's such a basic, fear that that's why I love that movie. I said everything in that movie's scary. The woods are scary. The basement's scary. The damn cabin's scary.
Mm-hmm. We're running a little bit over here on time, but I would like to, before I sign off here, I would like to speak to you about Trick or Treat because you brought it up, and 1031 is a horror anthology. What was your favorite segment in Trick or Treat?
I love the one with the kid, the school bus.
Oh,
the zombie kids. Like, I really enjoyed that story. I thought it had emotion to it. It was sad. Like, it was a sad story, and it had a great payoff. Like, it was, it was just a good, just you felt bad for those kids when he drove them off to school. What they did to that girl, to torment her.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it had pathos to it, and that's why I liked it. Resonated. I was like, this is a good story.
All right, now, let's just go to a few other anthologies before I let you go. Have you seen Tales from the Hood?
Yes.
I
love Tales. I saw it in the theater when it first came out.
Yeah, great film, by the way. Now, did you have a favorite segment in that?
Absolutely, the voodoo doll one. Absolutely.
Oh, that was the one I was gonna pick. Yeah,
the voodoo doll one is hands down. That was scary. I remember I was watching. This one's a pretty scary story.
Yeah, that had that guy from Major League in it. I can't remember the actor's name.
Corbin Burnson.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, he definitely. That was one of those situations where his previous comedic role played into the. I guess that's what Hollywood does. They pick actors based on. But anyway, at any rate, his previous comedic role made you trust him or not be so. I don't know. You were not necessarily sympathetic to him because he was a racist, but you certainly empathized.
He made a funny racist. How about that way? Like he was about as likable as a racist could be.
Yeah, exactly.
He was pretty humorous watching him go through it all. It's like it's sort of like the guy from I forget what E.G. Marshall from Creepshow with the bugs. Like he was a total prick, but he was kind of funny. Like just how much of an asshole he was, and some of the things he said was pretty funny. But then he gets his comeuppance. But yeah, I mean, it's nice to see an actor like Corbin. Obviously, wasn't like afraid to like I'm going to play a racist, and he went full out with it, and he just chewed the scenery, and it was great. It made that story like fantastic.
All right, and one more before I let you go. Now, do you have, and we talked about this previously just in text message, because I did tell you that I'm a huge fan of anthology horror, and there were certain films that gave me faith in modern horror, and one of them was VHS. Now, do you have a favorite from VHS?
Oh, yeah, the Siren. Definitely the Siren, like that chick was creepy.
Yeah, she did play it well.
Weird eyes. She was a vampire. I think they call her the Siren because I think they made a segment. But yeah, she was that was creepy. She was creepy.
Yeah, she had the
very unique look about her.
Yeah, and I think that's what gave it. I mean, everybody beats on found footage, and that's what VHS is. It is found footage. Everybody beats up on it, but that was one of those. rare glimpses into when found footage can be done correctly. It made it all the more real, I guess. You know, even though it was an extraordinary circumstance in comparison to Second Honeymoon, which is a very straightforward. That's the one where Is that where the guys, they keep falling asleep and someone keeps coming in and filming them while they're sleeping? Exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That was like a very realistic something that could happen versus something like the Siren,
the vampire one.
Yeah. Right. But I'm glad you picked that. That wouldn't have been the one I picked, but I'm glad you picked it because it was one of the better.
Which one would have been yours?
Oh, I think it's called Tuesday the 14th or whatever, the one that's like a total ripoff of a slasher. And the only...
Oh, yeah, that's the one where the guy keeps like phasing in and out and stuff. Yeah, that was pretty strange. Yeah, I remember he kept glitching, like it was real glitchy.
That was why I liked it. It was like, okay, we can have a masked assailant like Jason or Michael Myers, or you don't even need to give them that. You can just, glitch. In found footage, you can do whatever the hell you want, So there was something about that was I guess it comes back to why I liked The Barn and why I liked 1031. It's like a throwback. It was the modernization of a masked assailant. Like he didn't have to have a mask, and it goes back to all those other it's not so much what the camera shows you, it's what the audience interprets it as, particularly in older horror. Like you don't see the carnage or the gore. And I'm not saying I'm not a fan of it. I do love it, but it was, you don't have to see it. You can make it let the audience make it up in their mind. And I think that was why I liked that particular segment. All right. Well, I've held you on the phone at least 20 minutes longer than I told you I would, but once I get talking horror...
Same here, man. I can't, you can't shut me up. I love talking with horror about, with people.
So Zane Hershberger, 1031 is available. Is it available on Amazon?
I think it's going to be, or it might be now. It's good. It's definitely soon. If not, it's definitely going to be available.
And what's the other website that you sent me?
Scream Team Releasing. Yeah, it's pretty much, if you can find yourself to The Barn, like if you on Facebook under the Barn page, just go to Shop Now. It'll take you right to the page with all 1031 and Barn stuff.
That was what was that? Scream
Team Releasing.
ScreamThemeReleasing.com. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Because I did look it up because I was trying to point somebody in the direction of your films. Well, Zane, I would really like to thank you for taking the time to speak with me, particularly to bullshit at the end. I really appreciate that. So, 1031. Any more screenings coming up other than the premiere? Or?
I think for right now there may be like a couple of small ones, but I think they really wanted to get the film out. So there may be some here and there. As of right now, I'm not 100% sure. I think you guys wanted to do a screening, didn't you, for the Lamp Theater?
The Lamp, yeah. Well, I mean, that's not official yet, obviously, and you're talking
right, but I mean, if that's... yeah.
I'm just messing with you.
But yeah, I said they haven't really been, for the 1031, they kind of wanted to skip past that on this one and go right for people being able to, watch it at home. So.
Good.
But
All right.
if people want to see it in like, we'll whatever, if something pops up, we'll put it up on, if you go to the home pages on Facebook and stuff, we always announce when we're going to be showing it. So if you just keep your eye out there, anyone that wants to see a showing of it on a bigger screen or whatever, just keep your eye out.
Awesome. You hear that, Cult Classic Horror Nation? You keep your eye out, and you will get to see 1031. All right, Zane, thank you so much. That's Zane Hershberger, cinematographer.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir. I appreciate it.
And horror film aficionado. Thank you so much for talking with us, and we'll see you next time.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Don't you blame the movies. Movies don't create psychos. Movies make psychos more creative.
Oh, yes. There will be blood.